The night was restless, the kind that carried a warning in the wind. Rain lashed against the windows of a quiet suburban home, the streetlights flickering as thunder rumbled overhead. Inside, two sisters, Emma and Lily, were left alone while their parents enjoyed a late anniversary dinner. The house felt safe, familiar, but the storm outside seemed to whisper otherwise. Shadows stretched along the walls as the wind howled, rattling the doors. The clock ticked closer to midnight, each second dragging with an eerie stillness. What they didn't know was that they weren't really alone. Something was already inside. At exactly 9 p.m., the house was swallowed by darkness. A flash of lightning cut through the windows, followed by a deafening crack of thunder. The hum of appliances died, leaving only the distant howl of the wind. The backup generator flickered on, keeping the phone lines alive, but the rest of the house remained cloaked in eerie silence. Emma lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Lily clutched her blanket. The air felt heavier now, the shadows deeper. The storm outside raged, but inside an unsettling stillness crept in. Something about the darkness felt wrong. The house groaned as the storm raged outside. Then, just past 10 p.m., a sound cut through the rain. A slow, deliberate creak echoed from downstairs. The front door. Emma stirred in bed, assuming it was their parents home early. "Be quiet down there," she called out sleepily. But there was no reply. Lily peeked out of her room, eyes wide with uncertainty. The sisters stepped cautiously to the top of the stairs, overlooking the foyer below. The door hung slightly open, rain dripping onto the floor. The wind hadn't blown it open. Someone had, and they were inside. The house was silent, except for the distant rumble of thunder. Emma and Lily stood frozen at the top of the stairs, staring into the darkness below. Then, a faint rustling. Their eyes darted to the living room. Two shadowy figures moved slowly across the space, slipping into the dining room without a sound. The dim glow from the storm outside barely outlined their shapes. Emma's breath hitched. "Mom? Dad?" she called out, her voice uncertain. No response. The figures didn't move like their parents. They were too still, too careful. And that's when the fear truly set in. The house was drowning in silence when the phone rang. Emma jolted upright, heart pounding. The glowing screen read, "Mom." Relief flooded her as she answered, "Hi, honey." Her mother's voice came, calm but distant. "Sorry we're late. We had to stop for gas." Emma's blood ran cold. "You're not home," she whispered. A faint click echoed on the line, as if someone else was listening. Her mother hesitated. "What do you mean I saw you and Dad?" Downstairs silence. Then, her mother's voice dropped to a whisper. "Grab your sister. Get out. Right now." Emma's hands trembled as she lowered the phone. Lily stared at her, confused. "What did Mom say?" she whispered. Emma swallowed hard. "She said, they're not home." The air grew thick with silence. Then, a noise. A slow, deliberate shift in the darkness beyond their bedroom door. Emma's breath hitched. Someone was standing just outside. Lily reached for the doorknob, but Emma grabbed her wrist, shaking her head. They weren't alone. The storm raged outside, but inside the real terror was waiting, watching, listening. And then, another sound. A floorboard creaked. Something was moving toward them. Emma gripped Lily's hand, her pulse hammering in her ears. They crept toward the hallway, every step measured, every breath shallow. The house was deathly silent, except for the faint rustling from the guest bedroom. A door stood slightly ajar. Inside, darkness yawned like an open mouth. A soft shuffle came from within. Someone was in there, hiding. Waiting, Emma forced herself to move. Step by step, they edged toward the stairs, then a whisper. A voice too low to understand. Lily gasped. Emma clamped a hand over her mouth, and from the darkness, something shifted. Something watching. Red and blue lights flashed through the rain-soaked windows as the sound of sirens shattered the silence. Emma and Lily stood outside, shivering, their breaths ragged. Inside, officers moved swiftly, their flashlights cutting through the dark. Then, one of them froze. The guest bedroom door creaked open. A beam of light flooded the small storage space. Two figures crouched behind the door, their eyes wide, their faces blank in their hands. Duct tape, a camera, a knife. The officers moved in, but the truth was clear. These men had been here for months, watching, waiting. The storage room was small, cramped, yet lived in. Blankets were piled in the corner, surrounded by empty food wrappers. The air was stale, thick with something unspoken. Then the officers found the photos. Scattered across the floor were dozens of images. Emma and Lily captured from the shadows. Sleeping, eating, laughing, sitting on the stairs. Each picture taken from inside the house. Emma's stomach twisted. These men hadn't just broken in. They had been living here, watching their every move. A final lingering photograph lay on top, a picture of Emma taken from inside her closet. The house was empty now, yet something lingered. A silence too deep, too unnatural. The walls, once filled with laughter, now held only echoes of what had lurked unseen. Emma and Lily never returned. Their family moved away, but the fear stayed with them. The feeling of being watched, of never truly being alone. The guest bedroom door remained slightly open, unmoved since that night, a final, eerie reminder. Outside, the wind howled through the trees, rattling the windows, and deep within the house, in the lingering shadows, a single floorboard creaked as if someone had never left. The University of the Arts had an old, almost haunted feel to it. Juniper Hall, my dorm, was no exception. The hallways stretched long and narrow, the dim lighting flickering as if struggling to stay alive. The air always felt a little too still, like the building itself was holding its breath. That night, as I trudged toward my room, exhaustion weighed on me. I was looking forward to one peaceful night alone. No late-night singing, no distractions, just sleep. But as I pushed open my door and stepped inside, I had no idea that something else was already waiting. Kara was my roommate, an incredibly talented jazz vocalist with a deep love for opera. Our tiny dorm room on the 6th floor of Juniper Hall barely contained her endless sheet music and late-night rehearsals. The walls were thin, and sleep became a luxury I rarely had. Eventually, I convinced her to practice in the music studios at the Merriam Theater instead. That evening, she packed her music, grabbed a coffee, and promised she'd be back by midnight. Finally, a quiet night to myself. I had no idea it would be the most unnerving night of my life. After Kara left, I wasted no time unwinding. A warm bowl of soup, a grilled cheese sandwich, simple comfort after a long, exhausting day. The dorm was eerily quiet without her singing. I showered, the hot water easing my tension, then wiped the steam from the mirror. My reflection stared back, tired, distant. By the time I climbed into my bunk, my eyelids felt like lead. The sheets were cool against my skin, and sleep pulled me under almost instantly. Finally, peace. But in the silence of that small room, something unseen was stirring, waiting for the right moment. A faint noise pulled me from my sleep. The soft click of a door shutting. Half awake, I squinted at my phone. Midnight. Right on time. I sighed, rolling over as I heard Kara step into the room. Her footsteps paused beside the bunk bed. Was she checking if I was asleep? A second later, the mattress below me creaked as she lay down. Strange, since she always brushed her teeth first. Then, silence. No movement, no breathing, just an unnatural stillness pressing against the air. My body tensed, something felt wrong. And then, from the hallway, I heard the lock turn, the door unlocked. The handle turned slowly. I held my breath as it creaked open, and there, standing in the dim hallway light, was Kara. She hummed softly, flipping through her sheet music, completely unaware. My stomach dropped. My mind raced. If Kara was just now coming home, then who had climbed into the bunk below me? My pulse pounded in my ears. I dared not move, barely even breathed. The mattress below me remained indented, as if something was still there. But now, in the suffocating silence, I realized the truth. Whatever had been lying beneath me was no longer human. I wanted to scream, to warn Kara, but fear kept me frozen. My grip tightened on the sheets, my breath shallow and uneven. She moved casually around the room, setting down her sheet music, stretching like it had been just another long night of practice. She had no idea that only moments ago something else had been lying in her bed. Something that was no longer there, or worse, something that was still in the room, watching us. I forced myself to look at the bottom bunk. The mattress was slightly indented, as if someone, or something, had just been there. But now it was empty. No blankets disturbed, no sign of movement, just a lingering presence that made the air feel thick and wrong. My skin prickled as an overwhelming sense of dread settled deep in my gut. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just shut my eyes and willed myself to disappear. Kara never noticed anything strange that night. She never asked why I was so quiet, and I never told her. But deep down, I knew. Whatever had been there hadn't left through the door. It had just faded, waiting for the next time. It was just another university morning, if you could call it that. I had slept in again, missing all my lectures, but that was nothing new. My roommates were gone, off to class, leaving the apartment eerily empty. Well, almost empty. One of them was still here. Iggy, always lingering, always watching. The silence felt heavier with her presence, like something unseen lurked beneath it. I stretched, rubbing my eyes, the hazy sunlight barely breaking through my curtains. The air smelled stale, thick with yesterday's smoke. Something about today felt off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. 8 of us lived in the flat, 4 girls, 4 guys. Most of them great people, especially Lily. But then, there was Iggy, or Artemis. She didn't care which name you used. She never quite fit in, always hovering on the edge of conversations, watching instead of speaking. Something about her felt wrong, off. She was small, frail even, but there was a strange energy to her. Knees were weak, yet she always found a way to be everywhere. I tried to be friendly, to include her, but she never accepted it. Instead, she just stared, like she knew something I didn't. Iggy was always there. No matter where I went, no matter what time it was, I'd turn a corner and she'd be there, watching, waiting. She picked fights over the strangest things, like my height, my tone, even the way I walked. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just awkward. But then I started seeing her outside the flat, in the library, near my lecture halls. Even when I went out with friends, always lurking, always silent. Was it coincidence or was she following me? I told myself I was imagining things, but deep down, I knew better. The flat was empty now. Everyone had gone home for Christmas except for me and Iggy. For the first 2 days, we barely crossed paths. I stayed in my room, keeping to myself, avoiding the kitchen unless absolutely necessary. The silence should have been comforting, but it wasn't. It felt unnatural, like the walls were listening. Every creak, every distant sound made my skin crawl. Iggy never knocked, never spoke, but I knew she was there, somewhere in the shadows of the empty flat, watching, waiting, and for the first time I truly felt trapped. With her, I was in my room, half watching Netflix, half waiting for a text. The silence of the empty flat had settled in, thick and unnatural. Then, my door creaked open. I turned, expecting nothing. But there she was, Iggy, standing in the doorway, dressed all in black, her heels unnaturally tall. Her face was twisted, her lips pressed tight, her eyes burning with something unreadable. "Did you take my orange juice?" Her voice was cold, accusing. I blinked, confused. Orange juice? That's why she was here. She didn't move, she just stood there staring, and suddenly, I wasn't so sure she'd come for juice. Sometime in the night I woke up, or maybe I never really did. My body was heavy, my mind fogged with sleep and smoke. But through half-lidded eyes, I saw it. A figure. Standing in the corner of my room, I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just watched, heart pounding as the shadow lingered and waiting. Then, slowly, silently, it crept forward, past my bed, toward my desk. Something rustled, a faint, deliberate sound, and as the figure turned to leave, the dim light caught her face. Iggy. I squeezed my eyes shut, praying she wouldn't notice I was awake. The door clicked shut. I waited, seconds, minutes, hours, I didn't know. My body refused to move, paralyzed by fear. Finally, when I was sure she was gone, I forced myself up. Every muscle screamed as I stumbled to the door, hands shaking as I locked it. The silence was deafening. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. I pressed my back against the wood, staring into the darkness of my room, too afraid to sleep, too afraid to even blink. Outside, the floor creaked. A slow, deliberate step. I gripped the blankets tighter, and I prayed for morning to come. I left the flat the next morning, bags packed, heart racing. My mom picked me up at 10 a.m., and I barely looked back. I told her everything. She didn't hesitate. We called the accommodation office. Iggy needed to be removed. I wasn't going back until she was gone. A month passed before I returned. The moment I stepped into the flat, Jack and Steve-O were waiting, concern written all over their faces. They already knew. "She's gone," Steve-O said. "They made her move out." I should have felt relieved. I should have felt safe again. But something still didn't sit right. The next day, a community officer showed up. He handed me a sealed bag and an official letter. "Recovered property from the investigation," he said. Confused, I tore it open. Inside, folded neatly, was a single piece of clothing. My underwear. My stomach twisted. I hadn't even realized it was missing. Iggy had taken it, kept it. Had it on her when they searched her room. I stared at the evidence bag, feeling sick I never saw her again. But that night, those eyes, that silence, I'll never forget, and I'll never trust a roommate again.